Clive Andrews, and I'm a family historian. And in the past 10 years or so, I've helped over 400 people discover more about their ancestors, who they were, when they lived, and what sort of lives they led. Over that 10-year period, an ever-increasing amount of family history data has become available online. And particularly if you pay, you can access a vast amount of documents to do with baptisms, marriages, burials, census returns, and a selection of other documents as well. And I think it's worth remembering that those documents are only available online because the originals are safely stored in archives such as the one here in Gloucester. And if you were to come with me behind the scenes here at Gloucestershire Archives, you would find an astonishing 12 miles of shelving groaning with documents of all kinds. And needless to say, only a fraction of those documents have been digitised and made available online. So if you were researching your family history, what would you find here in the archives that you can't find on your computer? If you've delved into family history yourself, you might think I'm going to start by mentioning wills because they're so important to family historians. But the wills for Gloucestershire have fairly recently actually been put online. So I'm going to mention another sort of document, just to give a taste of what's available here. And those are the documents created by the overseers of the poor. In the early Middle Ages, the poor were mainly looked after by monks and nuns and friars. It was part of their Christian duty. And when abbeys and monasteries were dissolved, something had to be done to replace their charitable support for the poor. And so Elizabeth I decreed that each parish should have 2 overseers to look after the poor. They would tax the better off people and use that income to support those in need. And overseers produced numerous records. There are taxation lists, almost censuses of the men and occasionally women in the parish who were liable to pay the poor rate. Then they produced records to show who received support and the reason why they got that support. Again, overseers often paid for young men and occasionally young women to become apprentices. And they kept records of who they were apprenticed to, and what their trade was. The overseers were also quite keen not to pay for anybody that they didn't have to pay for. And they particularly didn't like paying for illegitimate children and their mothers. And so they used to go to considerable lengths to try and track down the father and to persuade him to pay maintenance for the child. And the resulting documents are especially useful if you come across a parish register which records the birth of an illegitimate child but doesn't mention the name of the father, because you might just find that in the records of the overseers. So that's just one example of a group of documents which you could find here at Gloucestershire Archives and which you couldn't find online. I've only just touched on that enormous range of documents in the archives which might help with family history research. I haven't mentioned court records, I haven't mentioned property deeds, the incredible detailed maps of villages and towns which show every plot of land and who owned it. I haven't mentioned newspapers or the documents created by Gloucestershire businesses, for example. So as a fairly experienced family historian, what would I recommend? Certainly use online material. It's an incredible resource. But do dig deeper if you can. See what else is available at Gloucestershire Archives or whichever archives that you're in the county that you're exploring in. Not every ancestor by any means left a paper trail, but you might just find a document which throws a whole new light on one of your ancestors.